Right. So if you believe that governments are in a position to make decisions that are best for their populations, they've chosen this. It was their decision. I mean, there's an interesting framing of this relationship, which is when the pain comes from a lot of these. There's an economic crisis. The World Bank or other donors come in with some kind of package, rescue package or structural adjustment package. But regardless of what package is adopted, there is going to be pain. There's a deep recession, there's a huge budget deficit, etc. It's a very politically convenient thing for rulers of that country to blame the World Bank and IMF. I mean, that's like the perfect game. These foreigners, they're imposing this on us. They forced this on us. They tricked us. They did all these things. But like you said, if we take sovereignty of nations seriously, they could have just said no. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if the imbalances in money and power are just so great, what does consent mean effectively there? There's a recession. The country is, in the early 80s, there was this massive drought. Countries were struggling, and billions of dollars are just something you can't say no to. Sort of any conditions that would be attached, governments would say yes, because the consequences of saying no would be so dire. And that would actually speak towards saying we need to structure this relationship, recognizing that power differential from the start, and sort of rule out certain types of contracts, certain types of deals, potentially. There was another hand. Yeah, 15. So regardless of anything, if it isn't effective at leading to producing its goals, then you're saying this debate is a bit futile. It just doesn't lead anywhere. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go there next. So we're going to go there in one slide because that's sort of in two slides. That's sort of Billy Sturley's whole point is to say actually we're having the wrong debate. So this is the x-axis, we're going to go to the y-axis and then the z-axis on this. But I want to just make one more point, which is to say, and this is just along the lines of trying to understand the neocolonial point. It's very hard to understand which policies and institutional reforms will be effective at producing certain outcomes. It's very hard for people that know their own society well. It's very hard for those of us that study a particular set of issues well. Is it even conceivable that foreigners, typically freshly minted PhD economists working at the World Bank and IMF, will show up and after 3 days of being in the country know what those reforms are? So independent of this other issue, there's a question of knowledge and nuance. And we talked about this great case of Antanas Mokus in Colombia, who's someone who understood his society enough that he knew the symbolism to use to make people change. Can an outsider even begin to approach that kind of knowledge of a society? I think most people would say probably not. It would be very unlikely that they would. So that would kind of go along with the national sovereignty point. But again, Easterly's point is different. And this is the point that was just made, which is actually structural adjustment was never implemented. There was an economic downturn after countries got these loans from the World Bank and the IMF, but now it's factually counterfactual. They were in the middle of a massive economic crisis. That's why they needed these loans to begin with. So yes, various industries went bankrupt. Yes, the budget had to cut its deficit. The government had to cut its budget deficit. It couldn't run a deficit forever. But actually, none of that had to do with the conditionality. The government would have had to do all of it anyway, but they just conveniently blamed all of it on the World Bank and the IMF, who got this reputation, and reform never actually happened. So he gives these cases of countries that literally received dozens of loans without doing what they said they would do. Again, the average country in Africa received 6 loans. And then he gave the case of Kenya. There were 3 separate structural adjustment loans that had an explicit condition of privatizing the national railroads. And all 3 times, the government did not privatize the railroads. So the first time, they said, okay, we're going to privatize the railroads next year. 2 years later, there was another loan. Haven't done it yet. Definitely next year. 2 years later, there was another loan. Almost there. We're about to privatize the railroads. And the railroads are still not privatized. So there's a private consortium, a South Africa-like consortium running pieces of the railroad now in Kenya. So, he has a bunch of these examples and saying, basically, the World Bank and the IMF pretended to impose conditions, and countries pretended to follow conditions, and the money just kept flowing unconditionally. So this is kind of the map. 18 loans went to Cote d'Ivoire during this period. And going back to the political issues here, Cote d'Ivoire is a major French ally and Western ally in West Africa during this period. They got billions and billions and billions of loans, really without much reform. Zambia got 12 loans, despite the fact that they actually didn't implement a lot of macro reforms. They still had high inflation. They still didn't open up investment in the copper mines until later on, etc. But they got a dozen loans. So that's sort of Easterly's point. So this will lead us to our first clicker question, which is to say, in your opinion, should the Bank and the IMF given more or fewer loans to Ivory Coast and Zambia, just the 2 countries I just had on the map? A, they should have given fewer loans since conditions were rarely met. In other words, they should have imposed conditionality. B, they should have given more loans. There was a huge crisis. They should have just kept giving loans. C, it's hard to say since it's the conditions that matter, not the amounts. D, you guys are going to hate all these choices. D, as evidenced by Africa's subsequent turnaround, they gave exactly the right amount of loans. And E, the circumstances of the 2 countries differ, so we can't say. I should have maybe had an F, like, all these options are terrible. I'm not getting any D's so far. This is sort of tongue-in-cheek. I'm glad you guys are actually reading these. Okay, a couple people did. Thanks, guys. That was just for me. Thank you. Oh, no, they just went down. Back to 0. Okay, just another 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay, so it's pretty spread, although I was getting the feeling people weren't very happy. So a bunch of people said A, they should have given fewer loans. Some said they should have given more loans. C, it's hard to say. It's a very tricky situation. The countries we're studying are very heterogeneous. Their political circumstances were heterogeneous. Some were more or less democratic. Some were worse hit by the 1983-84 drought. I mean, very different circumstances. So maybe it's too hard to say. At the same time, I also made these choices ambiguous, and I'm glad there's a lot of spread answers because the issues around structural adjustment programs in the 80s and 90s are so often portrayed in black and white terms based on one's political orientation or ideology, and the issues are actually much more complicated than that. It's always easy to say, well, it's complicated, this and that, but in this case, it really is true. That you can argue this thing both ways, and I haven't been able to find a winning argument on one side or the other, but anyway, maybe you guys will. Okay, so what did Easterly say? Why did it work out this way? So if we take Easterly's claim seriously, Easterly says loans were made, conditions were never imposed. Why is that? It turns out there's strong institutional reasons why this occurred. So lenders want to move money. The World Bank wants to move money. They want to have a large portfolio. They want to have a lot of power. They don't want to hold back on making loans and then run the risk of their donors, basically the countries that run the World Bank and IMF, like the US, the wealthy European countries, Japan, etc., cutting their budgets. If they all of a sudden just cut back on loan amounts, maybe they won't get as much money next year. So they have an incentive to make as many loans as possible. That's kind of Easterly's central point. And that sort of the benefits of moving money don't just accrue to the leaders of the World Bank. They accrue to local leaders who receive the loan. So if you get lots of money flowing in, if bits of those money are misplaced or misused, you could benefit. So local leaders might benefit. And lower-level World Bank and IMF officials also have incentives to move money. So typically, historically, in the World Bank, you were promoted based on the number of large loan deals you were able to seal. But they never really went back a few years later and checked on how those loans had turned out. They never did serious, real evaluations of the programs that were funded by those loans. So you got credit for saying, I made the $3 billion Zambia roads loan or railroads loan. And then once you've made those loans, it's also embarrassing to admit that bad things happened or the conditions you imposed on the loans were never fulfilled, so no one had an incentive to sort of blow the whistle on that. So yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, when you speak about loans, are they ever repaid? It seems like we don't hold these conditions to be paid the loan.
Loans are repaid. Most of the loans are on concessional terms, so very low interest loans, way below market. So you could think of them as some combination of a loan and a grant in the sense that it is a low interest subsidized loan. But yes, they do need to be repaid. There's a whole separate issue about accumulation of debt, in part because of all this lending, and how a lot of this debt eventually just got wiped away through the heavily indebted poor countries initiative, the HIPC initiative 10 years later. So a lot of these loans were never repaid, and then the rich countries just sort of like wiped them off the books. So they effectively were grants. So the combination of the subsidized interest and the fact that there have been multiple rounds of debt forgiveness mean these loans are kind of like grants, more than loans. Okay, another couple points, and I think we touched on this last time, and you guys in section talked about the Fay and Niehaus article. We can't be so naive as to not think that the geopolitical considerations of the wealthy countries giving the money to the World Bank and the IMF aren't playing a big role in the targeting of these loans and grants. They do play a big role, and so in Fay and Niehaus you saw that very precisely. So we have to look at the domestic political context, say in the U.S., which is the largest contributor to both the World Bank and the IMF. There have been controversies in the U.S. about misused foreign aid. There are all these surveys that suggest that the average American thinks like 20% of the federal budget goes to foreign aid or something. So people are really ignorant, actually, domestically about what the foreign aid sector looks like. They think we're giving away tons of money, and they think it's all being wasted. So imposing conditionality is a very good PR move domestically, so that the big donor countries can say, the World Bank can go to the U.S. government or to the U.S. population and say, no, we're imposing strict conditions. If they're not doing what we say, we're cutting off the money. And again, because of the ignorance and the lack of accountability, they can make that claim even as they continue to lend loan after loan after loan without any conditions. So this is a very cynical view of what's going on. Others have other reactions or views on what the right view of the world is in terms of World Bank and IMF lending? Yeah, Betty.
Let's say World Bank and IMF rules of institution, and this is actually important for the existing one. Then why would the country like it's not a waste of money. Like you think like here, because
Yeah.
and then provide specific loans for people.
Yeah.
So why not
Yeah, so the world has changed a lot, and these days many more poor countries are just issuing, you're basically saying sovereign debt, so national bonds or treasury bonds, and raising money that way. In the early to mid-1980s, after the economic collapse, with the massive budget deficits that had been run, no one was buying that debt from sub-Saharan Africa. Governments could not go on the private market and raise money. Or they could, but at interest rates that were just so astronomically high that they would never want to actually issue that debt. And that's when the World Bank and IMF came in. So governments were running these huge budget deficits that they literally couldn't finance anymore, because no one would buy their government bonds anymore. And that's when this lending, this heavily subsidized lending came in, and instead of saying, okay, we'll lend you money at a 40% interest rate, the World Bank and IMF said, oh, we'll lend you money at a 3% interest rate. And so these were very heavily subsidized loans. And in that sense, it was a very generous program, but it came with these conditions. So today, it's different. Growth is up in sub-Saharan Africa. Many countries are issuing lots of sovereign debt. There's also this other player in the space, which is China, which is doing lots of direct investment in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's a lot harder today to say the World Bank and the IMF can easily bully African countries the way they did 30 years ago. Different loans had different conditions, and the types of conditions that were attached evolved over time. So in the very short run, there were some basic macro reforms that were imposed, but then over time, there were these deeper reforms, like agricultural reforms, tax collection reforms. Completely. It's a very parallel to the Latin American case. And in fact, before the reforms, in both many Latin American countries and many African countries, there were high tariffs, subsidies for domestic industry, very similar sorts of policies in the sort of manufacturing sector that there was a big push to try to dismantle with structural adjustment lending in the 80s and 90s. So there's a lot of parallels to the Latin American case. There were much smaller domestic financial institutions in sub-Saharan Africa than you had in Latin America. So in many African countries, initially at least, a lot of foreign banks and foreign financial institutions did well or sort of filled the vacuum. Now there's actually several African financial institutions and banks that are spreading from one African country to others. So again, the space is changing, but in the short run, there weren't as strong financial institutions to fill the void in sub-Saharan Africa as you would have had in Brazil or Argentina or something like that, or Colombia. Okay, there's another argument. So I'm going to be flip-flopping good and bad, but there's another argument that's kind of interesting, and we haven't really made this argument yet, but it's one that floats around, which is an argument about what foreign aid does to the development of institutions. And not just like a particular thing like an agricultural marketing board, but what receiving tons of foreign aid does to local politics, local institutions. So I have a quote here from a book by folks that used to be here at Berkeley. David Leonard was a professor here before he retired. Scott Strauss was a grad student. And they make this point. So I want us to think about this and say over time foreign aid contributes to weak states. So rather than developing policies really for domestic needs, politicians and government officials are very externally focused. They're spending so much of their time and energy catering to the donors, doing what the donors say, rather than really developing the capacity to put together the right policies domestically. And in the long run, this extends what they call colonial patterns of governance. So they go out there and make this kind of bold claim. But even without putting colonial in there, spending a lot of time catering to donors may mean there's weaker governance domestically. So this is a point that's very often made. There have been some studies, no one's done a proper study of this. Just the other day, I was chatting with colleagues about how we need to do this. But what we need to do is basically like a time-use survey, detailed time-use surveys of government officials around the world, and correlate how much foreign aid a government gets with what fraction of government officials' time is spent catering to donors. How much time they spend writing reports for donors, meeting with donors, etc., rather than necessarily meeting with their own constituents. You ever hear that?
Is it like a time-use issue, or is it something else? Like, I know the World Bank often doesn't like use local channels to distribute the money because it's easier to like set up their own office and run their own operations, and kind of like subverting the sovereignty of local institutions. For me, that's like a larger issue than like actually what the World Bank.
It could certainly be both. So to the extent that you're talking about basically setting up these parallel institutions or parallel channels rather than trying to strengthen the institutions that are there, this has been a big subject of debate in foreign aid. Anybody that's worked in development policy knows about this. There's been a move towards direct budget support rather than program support. The fear is if you fund programs, you set up this whole infrastructure for program, and the program ends, it kind of dissolves maybe. But there's been some donors that move towards just supporting the budgets of particular ministries and saying we're going to strengthen these institutions. So there's a dichotomy there. There was also a big move in the 90s away from funding governments. It was a contradictory move towards funding NGOs. And you could think of funding NGOs as the ultimate in what Strauss and Leonard are saying, which is instead of actually funding the government, strengthening them, training them so they have capacity, we're going to say we don't trust you at all. You guys are just so corrupt. We're going to fund an American NGO and all their expats working in education and let them set up a parallel system of schools and health clinics and whatnot in your country rather than actually strengthening the government system, which is going to be the long-term solution. So there's been a lot of debate about how the way you channel aid affects the development of institutions. And something that's a very active topic of discussion still. But this is a very harsh point on it. Now, again, this is arguing the other side of everything. You could say to donors in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, remember Ryan Svensson, 87% of the money disappeared when we transferred it to the government. Screw that. The education of poor kids in rural Uganda is much more important than enriching these government officials. I'm going to fund this through an NGO, and maybe much more of the money will get there. So you can argue these issues both ways, but sometimes there's a tension between the short-run imperative of doing a good program right now and the long-run goal of strengthening institutions. And I think that's where a lot of the interesting tension holds. And if you go towards the more skeptical, cynical view of the world, you might say maybe the donors don't really want to strengthen institutions because strong institutions mean they're government officials who can stand up to us. That's not necessarily within our geopolitical interest. That's the even stronger version of this argument. Okay, so is there a way to do better? Is there a way to provide assistance without weakening local institutions? So just on this point, actually, is there a way to provide assistance and strengthen institutions at the same time? This is something that has gained a lot of attention. There's been a big focus over the last 15, 20 years throughout the world, not even just in developing countries, but also in many wealthy countries, on decentralization, on moving power closer to the people, on strengthening local governments, giving them more autonomy. And in the country we've discussed most in this course, in Kenya, there's just been a major constitutional reform to take a ton of power the central government had and move it down to local elected governors and councils and everything. Literally, just now it's being implemented. So this is a big trend, which you could see as part of democratization. So in democracy, people have to have some say in local affairs. Okay. As more and more aid is going to local governments, local councils, etc., a lot of foreign aid donors have been trying to strengthen the local authorities through what's called community-driven development. This is very local level development. So let's say there is a village council that's elected, or a kind of collection of villages, a county, some group of people, local level authority that's now receiving more assistance from the central government, receiving more assistance from donors. Is there a way to bolster those institutions and make them more effective? Community-driven development aims to do that. What they typically do is combine funding with training. And the training is both training of the local officials as well as various exercises that are meant to empower the population to exert their rights, to take part in the political process, participation. So it's a bit amorphous. I'm going to be much more specific when I talk about this one specific project, but there are just scores and scores of projects that have this feature of combining assistance with local institutional reform in an attempt to get around this problem that aid weakens and corrupts institutions. The goal is to strengthen institutions while you give aid. And one group that's been a focus of many of these programs have been women. So getting women more involved in the political process, making sure women are represented as local officials, etc. So the marginalized group that's been the focus of these programs has been women. So is this lip service or reality is going to be the question. I'm going to talk about a program in Sierra Leone that was a well-funded, basically World Bank-funded CDD program that tried to empower women, that tried to strengthen, created local councils and strengthen them, and we're going to try to understand what the impacts were of that reform. Now again, you might think it's reality because donors want to do the right thing, or maybe it's lip service because this just sounds very politically appealing. It sounds appealing to empower and be democratic, but is it going to be effective? So this is a meeting from the program in Sierra Leone during one of the training sessions. So during one of the training sessions in villages, and I'll tell you all about this program in a sec, that received a community-driven development intervention, an outside facilitator came in, the village was called to a village meeting to try to explain the goals of this new council, that everybody was going to participate. Sierra Leone is a setting where chiefs have traditionally been very powerful in rural areas, and the idea here was not explicitly to challenge the chief. That was seen as basically being politically suicidal in rural Sierra Leone. So the program didn't challenge the chief, but they wanted to empower citizens to act collectively, to have their voice be heard, and it turns out that the chiefs actually are an important part of the story that we'll come back to. So what is this paper? Actually, it's 2012. The goal was to measure the impact of the CDD program. It was designed as a randomized experiment. So you guys know all about that in 220 villages. And it actually ran for 3.5 years, from late 2005 to mid-2009. So for 3.5 years, funding was being dispersed in multiple tranches. There were regular meetings in these villages to train local officials. First, elect the local officials for these local councils, train them, have regular meetings with women's groups, have regular meetings with youth groups for 3.5 years. This is actually a pretty intensive program. Very few programs last that long. And it was also well-funded. So this is a program that was well-funded, pretty well administered, as I talked about, went on for a long time. So if you're going to expect to see impact, you might expect this program to be a good place to look for them, just because it was done so seriously. I want to mention one other methodological issue before I get to the results, and this is something that I kind of mentioned on syllabus as the methodological issue this week, and it's something a number of us are increasingly interested in development economics and social science research, which is this study actually employed a pre-analysis plan. So what is a pre-analysis plan? It is a document that lays out the regressions, the statistical analysis that are going to be run before the data is in hand, before we analyze the data. Now, you might say, well, why would you do that? What's the point of doing that? When you look at the data, you can see all the patterns, you can kind of figure out where the analysis is going to go, and that's that kind of more sort of play-as-you-go style is how most people do social science research. They get their data and they kind of figure out what's in it. But can people think of why this might be a useful thing to do? Yeah.
Well, you've been spending years and let's spend years, and then you do the analysis afterwards, it just doesn't come out what you want it to. Like, so you find there's no impact. It's going to be really, really fun. You can be like, well, we use this different economic analysis, then maybe I'll get something from it. And you can use what you're not.
So there's a fear that maybe the researchers would have incentives to play up what they found because they would feel like it's a waste if they didn't find anything.
Not necessarily.